All right. So, what's up, everyone? I'm Sebastian, right for Sports Routes. Santino's on the line with me, and we're going to be breaking down the first round of the NBA playoffs. We're going to start off in the Eastern Conference, and we're going to start with the 4-5 matchup where the Hawks are the 5 and the Wizards are the 4. So, you want to start us off? What are your initial thoughts?
Yeah, I think this is a really interesting matchup. Honestly, both these teams are very talented, very closely related teams. I mean, they're both the 4 and 5 seed, obviously, but I think they both have a similar play style. Very
Yeah,
much led by their point guards.
I
I
think
think I think
they're both
Washington
pretty
may pull out
erratic
of this one though.
teams. Yeah, I think Washington will go through. I think John Wall is the best player in the series, and Bradley Beal might be the second best. Him and Paul Millsap might fight for that, but I just think Washington's been better throughout the season. They have more playmaking, and they've been a little bit more consistent, even though both teams have been a little bit erratic.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, don't get me wrong, the Hawks are a great team. They've got one of the better front courts in the NBA. I mean, Dwight Howard and Paul Millsap are both all
Yeah,
stars.
I just feel like
Ma-
if Atlanta is going to go through, they're going to need Dwight to just have like a premium throwback Dwight, like 25 points, like
yeah,
12 rebounds a game, because
definitely.
I don't see how the Hawks slow down John Wall or Bradley Beal when they're at their best.
Someone
And
that I think is like going to be very like crucial in this is Otto Porter. Like he's gonna have to either shine or not.
yeah,
It's really gonna.
he's in the running for most improved player. He's had an amazing season. I'm pretty sure he led the league in 3-point percentage, and he's just one of those 3-and-D guys he's gotten really good, Jay Crowder style. He
Hmm.
shoots the three at an incredibly high level. He defends really well, and they're at their best when him and Oubre are in the front court together with Wall and Beal and Gortat. So
Hmm.
if they're gonna go small, they're gonna have to punish Atlanta by hitting their threes, because if not, if they can't hit their threes, then Atlanta's just gonna dominate them inside with Millsap and with Howard.
Yeah. Also, I mean, we'd be foolish to ignore that the moves the Wizards made around the deadline. They got Bojan. They got Brandon Jennings after the Knicks
Bogdanovich,
released
yeah,
him. Yeah,
yeah.
like a
They
lot of
their
talent
bench
on
was a
that
weak
bench too.
point, right? Their bench was a weak point before that point, and they improved a lot. Their first round pick, which should be a late one, and they got Bojan, who can just heat up at any moment and just hit a ton of threes. He should be really important for them. He might be, apart from Wall and Beal, obviously just an X factor for them, just because he can change a game at
Yeah,
any point. He can just come in and get red hot. So that
it's
fits in well
it's
with
good to
them.
see
And
players like.
yeah, it's good to see a guy like who's just on the Nets just get a chance in the playoffs.
Yeah.
And then for Atlanta, I think it's going to be really important for Tim Hardaway Jr. to have a big series. He scores really well. He shoots really well. He's similar to Boyan. He can just get really hot. He had that game back a couple of months ago in Houston where he had 20-something points in the fourth quarter, and he brought them
Mhm.
back from double-digit deficit. So he's just one of those guys that, like Boyan, just can get red hot. So hopefully maybe we get each of those guys has their game, and this one might go 7, honestly. It's pretty close.
Yeah, I
What do
can
you
see it
think?
going 7 easy.
Who do you have?
Right now, I'm taking Washington in 6, but I could see it easily going 7. That sixth game could go either way. You know, when playoff
Yeah,
tensions rise, it's really up to the
yeah,
veterans and those players that need to step up if they really want it.
yeah. One of those. Another thing, real quick, is Washington's been pretty good in the playoffs when they made it, but they've been pretty inconsistent with obviously making it. And Atlanta's been there. Who knows how long? Like how many years in a row? Something like 8 years in a row that they've made the playoffs. So they've been there. They have guys that know how to win in the playoffs, and you can't take that for granted. With that
Yeah,
said, I
definitely.
still have Washington in 5 is my pick. I think Washington's just a better team, and they're playing better ball right now, and they have the best player, which is John Wall.
Hmm. Yeah.
All right, so finishing that up, we have the 3-6, which is Toronto the 3 and Milwaukee the 6. So Milwaukee started off the season pretty well. Then they really spiraled. They were sub 500 for a while, and towards the end of the year, once Middleton came back, they really picked up their pace. They've been able to overcome the Jabari Parker season-ending injury, which is just horrible for him. His second ACL in his 3 seasons.
Mm.
But Giannis has been amazing, of course. Malcolm Brogdon, their second-round pick's been amazing. Khris Middleton's been amazing since coming back, and they're gonna give Toronto, I think, all they can handle.
Yeah, I
But
think
I
it's
just
interesting when
think,
you look at a team like Milwaukee because going into the season, no one really had them doing much. I mean, like, yeah, they could have snagged that 8th seed, that 7th seed, but seeing them in the 6th seed is pretty nice. I mean, they're definitely gonna have a challenge with Toronto. Toronto's an incredible team. DeMar ended the season on a scorching hot run, one of the best I've
Yeah,
seen in his career.
yeah.
One of those
He's
players
elevated
that's
his game to
yeah,
just he's an offensive superstar, and it's weird because he doesn't do it the way most players do it, which is threes. He isn't a great 3-point shooter, but he's so great from the mid range, which is sort of outdated that it's hard to stop just because people aren't used to it. So he's been great. Getting Lowry back before the playoffs, I think, has been huge for them because one, he doesn't seem like he's lost a step. He's looked great in the couple of games he's been back, but just knowing that he's there and not having to sort of get reacclimated with him during the playoff series, being able to have like readjust with him back before the season ended was huge for them. And also,
yeah.
I think, yeah, go ahead.
I mean, I agree with you there, and also that like when you look at the team that Milwaukee has right now, you can see players like Thon Maker, Michael Beasley coming out in the playoffs, stepping up. Maybe Spencer Hawes off the bench. He's got that inside-outside game. I mean, for me, he's a very underutilized player on the teams he's been. When he was on the Clippers, I thought he was very underrated, coming out of their bench and just putting up points and rebounds for them off the bench is like very, very useful. I mean, when you look at a team like Toronto, that's exactly what you're going to need to stop them. They've got very great depth now that they got Serge at the trade deadline. Now all of a sudden they have
PJ Tucker. I'm excited to see how PJ Tucker, or like, I'm assuming they put PJ Tucker on Giannis, how he's able to sort of control Giannis has been amazing this year. Led his team in all the major categories: points, rebounds, assists, steals, and blocks. He's just been Giannis has been amazing, but PJ Tucker has been amazing for Toronto, just defending as a whole. And since acquiring him and Ibaka, they've been a great defensive team. So I think Toronto's they're just more talented. They're deeper. They can play different styles. They can go big with Ibaka and Valanciunas. They can go small with Tucker at the 4 or Patterson and Ibaka at the 5. So I just think they're more equipped and they've been here before. So my pick is Toronto in 6.
Yeah, I think I have Toronto in 6 as well. Who would you say if you had to pick one player on both of these teams? Other than obviously the stars, DeRozan, Giannis, someone that we don't think is going to shine, that can shine.
Well, I think Chris Middleton, if Milwaukee's going to have a chance, Chris Middleton needs to be huge. He's sort of a 3-and-D guy, but on steroids in the sense that he's not just stand in the corner and hit threes and defend a good opposing wing. He is a really good defender on the perimeter. And offensively, apart from just being able to hit threes, he's able to create for himself. He can drive, he can penetrate, he can play make a little bit. So if Milwaukee's going to have a chance, I think he's going to have to be, after Giannis, the best player for them and one of the 4 best players in the series.
Yeah.
All right, so the 2-7 is probably the most interesting matchup in the East. You have the Cavs, the defending champs, 2-time defending Eastern champs. They're going up against the 7 seed, the Pacers. And obviously the big matchup in this is just LeBron against Paul George. It's what everyone wants to see. It's LeBron, the best player in the game, against Paul George, one of the 10, 15 best players in the game. And Paul George, obviously the whole narrative around him is he wants to play for a contender, and he's not sure if that's Indiana, and they were able to sneak into the playoffs on the last day. And they're probably going to lose to the Cavs in the first round. So what are your thoughts on this series?
Well, I mean, it's hard because Indiana's a really talented team. I thought before the season began that they were going to be maybe top 5, top 4 seed in the East.
I think that was a thought that a lot of people had.
Yeah, I mean, right out of the draft when you have Miles Turner, and we saw him in the first month of the season just going completely off, averaging about 14 rebounds, 19, 20 points.
He had an amazing rookie year last year, and he's been amazing this season. They got a great player picking him 11th overall. That was a steal for them.
You cutting out? I can't really hear you.
I was just pretty much saying that Miles Turner has been amazing for them. They drafted him 11th overall last year, and he can score, he can defend really well, he can play make, and he's still young. He's in his second year, and they stole him where they took him 11th overall in that draft, so they did a good job. And he's sort of, if Paul George were to leave, whether they trade him or in free agency the year after, he's their building block after Paul George. But I think that's, if they're going to make any noise against Cleveland, assuming Paul George has a huge series, it would have to be Miles Turner who would have to have a huge series as well.
Yeah, definitely. I mean,
And
then
then
again, we can never rule out LeBron in the playoffs. He's shown us before that it doesn't matter how the regular season goes. He knows how to lead a basketball team. He makes them better. He himself becomes a different animal right when that playoff schedule turns around.
yeah, he's 40-7 all time in the first round. So I mean, I don't think Cleveland's gonna have any problem with Indiana. I just think Cleveland is gonna use this series more as a sort of get right. They have not been playing well at all. I think they're just going to use the series, get right defensively, get their communication back. Hopefully Tristan Thompson will be back and just get everyone sort of in rhythm. So I think they should be fine. At the end of the day, LeBron isn't going to lose in the first round, even against a team like Indiana that has Paul George. Paul George, even going toe-to-toe with LeBron, it's just he's not good enough to carry that team against the Cavs. Cavs just have too much firepower.
Yeah.
So I
best basketball player on the planet.
Right. They have LeBron. So you can't pick against LeBron in the first round. It's never gonna happen.
Yeah.
With that said, I was really tempted to go with a sweep here, but I'm a gentleman's sweep. I'm going Cavs in 5. I think they'll be up 3-0 or 2-0, and Paul George will have one huge monster home game, and then LeBron will take the other road game, and they'll go back to Cleveland up 3-1 and finish it at home.
I actually see a bit of surprise here, to be honest. I have the Cavs in 6, but only because this Pacers team is very hungry. They have players that have wanted to succeed in the league, and I mean Paul George being one of them, obviously, but Lance Stevenson coming back into the league after being a free agent for so long. I just find the team very hungry. I don't think they're going to go out without a fight. With that being said, on the Cavs, I do want to see some more from some players. Like some players like Darren Williams, for example. They got him. Everybody thought he was going to be a great addition, but I don't know. Personally, for me, I haven't really seen him add much more to the team other than a point guard off the bench. No, nothing more than average. Don't get me wrong, but
I think it's just they didn't even have a point guard off the bench. That was the big thing with them. Either LeBron or Kyrie was always in. He's just a steady presence.
Yeah. So I mean, players like him, they could heat up and it could easily become a sweep. Darren Williams, we've seen in the playoffs before. Not much obviously, but before he has shown that he can perform under pressure and in the clutch.
Yeah.
All right, moving on to our next one. We got Chicago and Boston.
Yeah, we have Chicago, the 1 seed, against Boston, the 8 seed. I'm sorry, Chicago, the 8 against Boston, the 1, excuse me. Yeah. And this is a little bit interesting because Boston is one of the worst number 1 seeds in recent memory. Win-wise, at least, just 53 wins was enough to get the number 1 seed in the East this year. Obviously, the Cavs sort of slacked off the regular season. And Boston this core hasn't won a playoff series yet. They got swept 2 years ago by the Cavs. They lost 4-2 to the Hawks last year. I don't know how good they are until I see it in the playoffs for them. So I think they're a better team than Chicago. Obviously, I think Chicago's a mess. I think Chicago, what Fred Hoiberg should do is bring Dwayne Wade off the bench if Dwayne Wade is willing to do that. Because having him, Rondo, and Butler on the floor at the same time just hasn't shown that it can work. And I think if Chicago's going to have a chance, then Jimmy Butler needs to be an all-NBA type player for 6 or 7 games, however long it takes. Rondo needs to be primetime Rondo. He's going to have a chip on his shoulder because he's playing his former team. And I think Dwayne Wade coming off the bench is going to have to average 20. And Mirotic is going to have to be red hot from 3 because they don't have much else. What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, I agree with you too. Before the season began, everybody was talking about the big threes on every team, how the Cavs had one, how the Warriors had one. Then I saw pictures with Dwayne Wade, Rondo, and Butler. And I said, you know what? I mean, this could happen, but as we know now, it hasn't really clicked. Rondo's the type of player that you put him on a team, and it's either it happens or it doesn't. We saw that on the Mavericks. And then he got traded to the Kings, and he was doing really well in the Kings. He was averaging a triple-double for a while. And then obviously we saw that drop down, but now he was on Chicago, and like you said, Fred Hoiberg should bring Dwayne Wade off the bench because I haven't seen that happen at all. I think at this point in his career, not that the injury bug has killed all his athleticism, but he's more of an off the bench commodity now. Is what I'm saying.
And I think even more so at this age, this team is better suited when all 3 of them aren't on the floor at the same time, just because there is such a lack of spacing and it's so easy to defend them. And on Boston's side, I just think Robin Lopez is going to have a monster series. They play with Horford at the Amir Johnson at the 5 and Horford at the 4. They get out rebounded pretty handily on most nights. They're a good defensive team, they're good offensive. Isaiah Thomas is amazing. He's a top 5 MVP candidate. He's unstoppable in the fourth quarter. We'll see how that changes in the playoffs. If that changes, we'll see what plans the Bulls have of defending him, whether they put Butler on him, whether they put Rondo on him, whether they double team him when he drives, whether they just double team him right off the bat when he crosses half court and say, just, someone else beat us, it's fine. But Boston's just a better team. They understand how they play together better. They won more games, obviously. They're the number 1 seed. With that said, they're going to have all the pressure, but they should be fine. Chicago shouldn't be much of a threat.
How did you feel about the Cameron Payne, Doug McDermott, Taj Gibson trade? In respect to now their playoff success.
Right. So Taj Gibson's a free agent after the season, so I guess you try to trade him just to avoid having to pay him at the end of the year if you don't think he's in your future plans. I would like to see Cameron Payne have played more. I don't see why you traded him for a young point guard and then you just have him in the D-League most of the time. Mm-hmm. I would have liked to see him play. They don't have any shooting. They trade away McDermott, who's someone they traded up in the first round for a few years ago, so that they just admitted to failing that experiment. I think Gibson would have been huge in this series just because, like I said before, Boston really struggles to rebound. They get out-rebounded. They're not a team with a lot of size, and Gibson could have been huge for that. And Gibson is really good switching on pick and rolls in the perimeter. He was good against the Heat when the big 3 were playing. He would always switch on to LeBron, a pick and roll, switch on to Dwayne Wade. He did, as good a job as any big can do in that situation. But I don't think, if they don't do that trade, are they winning the series? No. Are they a little bit more competitive? Maybe. I don't know how competitive they're going to be. Are they going to win 1 game, 2, 3, 4 to 7, or can they win? We'll see. But I just think Boston's a better team, and they have, the best player in this series is either Isaiah Thomas or Jimmy Butler. But they have the better coach. They have more depth. They have, more spacing. They play better defense. So I'm going Boston in 6.
All right. I mean, I don't think Chicago should get their hopes down at all. I mean, this is definitely a winnable series for them, but like you said, Boston has multiple things on them. They have the bench depth. They're much younger, much faster on D. Their basketball IQ, I feel, is much better because of their coaching. I mean,
right.
The coaching's been phenomenal. Yeah, I mean, he should be in the running for Coach of the Year. No one thought this Celtics team would exit the year on top of the Cavs, let alone 2 games on top of the Cavs.
As the 1 seed.
Yeah, as the 1 seed, too. I mean, granted, the East, the Celtics would be the 4th seed in the West, so let's not take credit away from the West. The West has been playing impeccable, but in terms of the East, Celtics really have been the reigning kings this year. And, I do agree with you in the fact that the Celtics shouldn't have a problem with the series, but I could still easily see this game going to 6, given that the Bulls are just, Jimmy Butler could lead this team to a couple of victories. We've seen that throughout the season.
Yeah.
You could make the argument that he single-handedly brought them to the 8th seed at all.
Yeah. If there was ever a time that you'd want to be the 8th seed, it would probably be against this Boston team as the 1-seeded team that has no playoff success in the past with this core. They're really not a great 1 seed in terms of wins. It's not like they won 60 games or high 50s. It was 53. And a team, they're vulnerable. They don't rebound very well. And that's it pretty much. But there are some vulnerabilities with this Boston team, but they're going through for me. What's your pick on this?
I'm going to say Boston in 5.
Boston in 5.
I think they'll be up 2. Maybe Chicago wins a couple home games, but Boston will close it out.
All right. So let's head over to the West now. We'll start again with the 4-5. And the 4-5 is probably the best, well, not the best, but one of the most intriguing series we have in the first round this year. It's the 4-seeded Clippers against the 5-seeded Jazz. So what are your initial thoughts when you saw that this was going to happen?
My initial thoughts are it's about time for the Clippers to finally enter a playoff berth with healthy players. We've seen the past 2 years they've gone down with injuries. Chris Paul and Blake Griffin leaving the playoffs early a couple years ago. And then last year just not really doing well in the playoffs at all.
Well, last year was when they all got hurt.
Oh, yeah, last year, my bad. Yeah, you're right. Last year when they all got hurt, and then the year before that when they just weren't playing well at all. I believe they made it to the second round, but I think they got, maybe they won 1 game.
2 years ago, playoff? 2 years ago is when they knocked off the Spurs in the epic Game 7, and then they they totally just blew their 3-1 lead against the Rockets in the second round. They just totally blew it, up 19 at home in the fourth quarter of your closeout Game 6, and you blew it to Josh Smith. So I have a question for you. If the Clippers lose to the Jazz in the first round, do they blow it up?
I mean, it's hard to say because that's a really talented roster you got there. I mean, I think you have to get rid of old names like Jamal Crawford. They're just salary that you don't want on your team. You should go in a new direction. But I mean, Blake Griffin though, he's a fantastic player. I don't think you get him off that team. DeAndre Jordan, he's a very formidable player.
Blake Griffin and Chris Paul are free agents this summer, which are their two best players. Do you look to sign and trade? Do you sign them? Do you keep them? Or do you just let them go and rebuild completely? Because this team doesn't have many of their picks in the future. I think personally they should keep Paul and Griffin. There's two teams in this league. There's teams with stars and teams without stars. And you can't win titles without stars. And they haven't proven that they can win a title with this core. But why would you want to let those two guys go out the door for nothing and just win 25, maybe 30 games a year and just be irrelevant like you have been for most of your history? This is the first time in Clippers history that for like consecutive years they've been really good and considered contenders before the season.
Mm-hmm. No, yeah, I mean I agree with you in that, but let's not forget that they could beat this Jazz team. This Jazz team's very talented. Don't get me wrong, but I don't want to start talking about blowing stuff up and free agency before we even get past the first round. But I do see what you're saying, but I don't think they should. I mean, they have a great core there. I mean, no reason to go anywhere else other than maybe getting a solidified bench. I mean, JJ Redick, yeah, he's great as a starter, but I mean, maybe take his salary somewhere else, give it to players that are going to be free agents that could do more for you off the bench. I mean, you've got Paul and Griffin, Jordan on the floor at the same time.
He's also a free agent.
Yeah.
So it's going to be interesting to see what they do in this offseason. A lot of it's going to have to do with how they perform in this playoffs. I think their matchup with Utah should be interesting. Gobert versus Jordan is something that really intrigues me because they're two guys that seemingly don't fit today's NBA, but Gobert's in the running for Defensive Player of the Year. DeAndre Jordan was an All-Star this year, and they sort of mirror their games. They dunk a lot. That's why their shooting percentage is so high. They defend the paint really well. They block a ton of shots, and they set screens. They defend, stuff like that. So they somewhat mirror each other. I'm interested to see how George Hill defends Chris Paul. Chris Paul's had an amazing month. He won Player of the Month for the last month of the season. Coming back from his injury, he's looked really good. I think the biggest place where the Clippers get their advantage, apart from having home court, even though they finished with tied records, they had a tiebreaker. I think Blake Griffin needs to exploit the power forward position for the Jazz, whether it's Derek Favors or Boris Diaw starting. He's just more physical and more talented than whoever they put out. So I think that's where the Clippers should be able to get their biggest advantage. What do you think?
Sorry, I cut out for a second. My headphones are out of battery. What'd you say?
Yeah, just pretty much the Clippers' biggest advantage should just be Blake Griffin, whoever he goes up against in the West, in the Jazz, the power forward, whether it's Boris Diaw or Derek Favors. He's more physical, he's more talented, he can play make, he can handle, he's got a pretty good shot. He should just dominate his matchup with whoever the 4 is for the Jazz, and I think that's where the Clippers should take advantage of. If they want to see any sort of success
at all, they have to run that team through Paul and Griffin. There's no argument there. I mean, not many other leaders on that team. I mean, Jamal Crawford, he could score for you, get some points down, but if you lead that team through Blake Griffin and he gets hot down low, there's not much to do. You can't really stop Blake Griffin when he gets hot. I mean, go ahead.
I'm interested to see. Yeah, go ahead.
No, I mean, I could always see them
you.
Playing a completely different defense down low to stop Blake Griffin. I mean, you've got Gobert down there who's in the running for Defensive Player of the Year. He could definitely give some pressure on Griffin. I mean, but as we could see easily happening, he could use his quickness and his shot, like you said, to just completely eliminate that option. And, I mean, the series could go either way at that point.
Yeah. It's going to be interesting. The Clippers are the 6th best offensive team in the league, just in terms of points per game at 108.7. And the Jazz offensively aren't in the top 10. They rank towards the bottom, actually, offensively. They're at 100.7 points per game. But defensively, the Jazz allow just 96.8 points per game, which is number 1 in the league. And the Clippers are 12th at 104.4. So it's going to be interesting to see if the Clippers are able to be efficient on the offensive end. And sort of Utah isn't a great offensive team, so Utah's defense can sort of lead them to 4 wins. And one more interesting thing for me in the series is just Gordon Hayward. He's been in the playoffs before, but I want to see him as the alpha dog on his team. I want to see him shooting the most, scoring the most, taking and making late game shots. He's going to be the best wing in this series, and I want to see him take over.
Definitely.
If he's going to get
I've heard a lot of things about Gordon Hayward possibly leaving if the Jazz don't see some sort of playoff success, which, you can't really blame him for. It's hard when you're reaching the middle of your prime, you're really getting there, you're playing well, and your team's just not a winning team. If I was an NBA player, of course you want to play for a contender, but it's nice that he's stuck with the Jazz, and now he's about to get that deal, and it seems like they've got the team that could seriously make a run if they really play well. They've got players that can come off the bench who really make a difference. Just Joe Johnson alone. I know Joe Johnson's old, but he could still play. He sort of reminds me of like a Paul Pierce kind of player. Again, Paul Pierce not what he used to be, but they're experienced veterans. They can come off the bench for you in the playoffs and really make a splash and help you a lot.
Yeah, this is a really deep team, so it's going to be interesting to see how Quinn Snyder sort of shortens the rotation. In the playoffs, instead of going 10, 11 deep, you usually go 8 deep, sometimes 7 deep, the deeper you get in. So seeing whether he uses Joe Johnson and Boris Diaw and Joe Ingles and Dante Exum, just seeing who he trusts in this playoffs is going to be interesting. And seeing what Gordon Hayward considers success. Is success for him losing in 7 close, like in a 7-game series to the Clippers, or is it we have to win a series and be competitive in the next series against the Warriors or the Blazers? So that's going to be interesting.
I imagine that all these players, they have their own expectations that they set for themselves. A lot of them could see the Clippers as a team that's very hard for them to beat, but some of them could see them as a team that they need to beat. And, it could go either way at that point. But, yeah, go ahead, continue.
Yeah. Yeah, it's just being realistic about the expectations and just knowing what your team can achieve realistically. With that said, I think Chris Paul is the best player in this series, and I think Blake Griffin's the second best. So I'm going Clippers.
Yeah, this series was really hard for me. I was actually talking about this with a couple of my buddies today, and we were really getting down to the grind. They were bringing up a lot of good facts about how the Clippers are probably just as hungry as the Jazz. They too, even though they've had this core for a while now, they really haven't seen much playoff success at all. Like you said, they did have some success 2 years ago, but after last year's the disappointing exit and all the stuff that's been going on within their organization, with all the stuff that happened with Blake Griffin, the issues with whatever that trainer was. It's nice to see them getting back down, playing good basketball and having a good shot. And I actually do see the Clippers exiting this series in 7. Actually, see it going right down to the wire.
In 7, I think we're both picking the Clippers. But if the Jazz were to win, I don't think either of us would be shocked. This is probably the most flip a coin type of series where there's no clear-cut winner. Whoever wins is going to be well-deserved.
Yeah, it should be a really competitive matchup. I'm really looking forward to watching it.
Yeah. So let's continue with this. Is probably the one series we're all looking forward to the most, just because it's the Rockets and the Thunder. It's Westbrook versus Harden. It's probably going to be MVP against second place in MVP. Harden against his former team. The Westbrook tour continues. Can he do it in the playoffs? It's just so many different angles to look at the series through. But Houston's the 3 seed, OKC's the 6 seed. And for me, this is going to come down to, can Andre Robertson shut down James Harden, which is unlikely, even though he's had a lot of success against him. And at the end of the day, if Houston is able to make their threes like they have been all season, then they should go through, because it's hard to keep up with them when they're hitting their threes. And OKC isn't a team that is wild offensively and has firepower and can score with anyone.
Like you said, it's really interesting. This is probably, if not the Jazz and the Clippers one, this is probably going to be the closest matchup in my opinion. You've really got 2 offensive superstars here. They're both in the running for the MVP, as we know, and like you said, on the other side of the ball, Andre Robertson, he could shut down James Harden if given the chance. But same thing with Russell Westbrook. Patrick Beverley on the other side of the ball could shut him down, but both these players could easily show them that this is not an easy thing to do. Playoff basketball is completely different from regular season basketball in terms of how much the players need this, how much they want it, and how much more they're going to perform. So not to really put other players in the shadow. these are talented teams. This isn't just Russell Westbrook versus James Harden. Let's not say that. But I mean, Steven Adams, Enes Kanter on the Thunder. I mean, these are very, very good big men versus. I mean, yeah, Clint Capella has shown us that he can play at an NBA level. I mean, he at the beginning of the season, not a lot of us thought that the Rockets would be in this position. I mean, the third seed, a lot of people didn't see them there. But it's players like that. I mean, Harrell off the bench, they could make a splash. It's going to be a close one. It's really hard to put my finger on it, to be honest.
Yeah, I think Taj Gibson might be really important. Like I said before, when we were talking about Chicago and you brought up the trade, he's pretty good at switching on the pick and roll on the perimeter person, as good as there is probably for a big man in the league. So I think when the Rockets put him on the pick and roll against James Harden, it's going to be interesting to see whether James Harden can get past him or just pulls up or finds his teammates. So that's going to be an interesting matchup for me. And it's going to be interesting to see Houston averages 14 made threes per game, nearly 14 and a half, and OKC allows something like 8.8 threes per game. So that's 5.5 threes, that the difference between how many one team makes and how many the other team allows, which is, let's say, 16.5 points. So 16.5 points is a huge deal, obviously, in a game. So it's going to be interesting to see what matchup wins. The OKC defense containing the Rockets' three-point shooting, or the Rockets' offense, it's just being too much for OKC to handle. 3-point wise, just
other than
obviously
James Harden and Russell Westbrook, who on either of these teams do you think could be the X factor in terms of helping their team the most?
So for Houston, okay, I think it has to be Ryan Anderson, just because when I guess for Houston you can go a lot of different ways. I guess I'm going with Ryan Anderson just because he's the big on their team that shoots the best, and pulling out either Gibson or Adams or Kanter creates space for Harden to drive in. So if Houston's going to go through, he needs to have a big series, in my opinion, just shooting well and being effective, because they can't leave him open, and he opens up lanes just like most of the players on that team. And for OKC, if they're going to go through, it's obviously Westbrook needs to have a monster series, but I think the big men, Kanter, Adams, and Gibson, need to just dominate inside and they need to get every rebound. They need to block everything coming into the paint. They need to defend well, set screens, just do everything big men do extremely well. And Oladipo, or actually Roberson, just playing defense on James Harden. And if he can hit his threes, which he hasn't shown the capacity to do at a consistent level, if he can hit his threes, that would be huge for OKC. But he hasn't proven that he can do that consistently. So I think Houston's probably better off.
One of the more interesting things I saw with this was sort of a similar situation that Bogdanovich is in Lou Will. I mean, he was traded around the trade deadline from the Lakers, and it seemed like, it was a great trade. He was really wasting away on a Lakers squad, and then he's able to go to a Houston squad, and he continued to make his bid for Sixth Man of the Year, which I personally think he's going to win. And I mean, if he has a big series and Gordon has a big series, I mean, that could be all that James Harden really needs in terms of support. I mean, yeah, their big men need to play well down low to stop OKC's big men. I mean, but it's going to be a close one. And for OKC, I mean, you said it better than I could have. They definitely need their big men to play well. Roberson needs to hit his threes. But again, the players they got in the trade, Gibson and McDermott especially, they need to show their worth. They need to show that it was worth trading a prospect like Cameron Payne to get them. I mean, Taj is on expiring contract. Doug McDermott, I mean, he's shown spurts of potential, but he hasn't really shown that he's able. I mean, he is able to play at the NBA level. Don't get me wrong. I'm not going to say that, but he needs to really show why he's here and that he deserves to be on this team.
McDermott hasn't been playing much since the trade. It'll be interesting to see in a series like this where they're probably going to need to keep up with Houston's three-point shooting, whether Billy Donovan chooses to use Doug McDermott more because of his ability to space the floor, score for himself, hit shots. And Houston defensively, on the offensive end, it's not so hard to defend Houston in the sense that they're going to take threes. Players are going to be running off screens. They're either going to drive and take layups or shoot threes. So pretty much on a very basic level where you should be, and defending them isn't the most difficult thing. It's not an offense that like Golden State where you just someone's always open. So maybe Doug McDermott gets some playing time, and he could be important if he's hitting shots. With that said, Houston 54 wins. They've just been great all year. James Harden's been great. I like Houston
I'm
in
actually going to go with a wild card.
6.
I'm going to say OKC takes this one in 6. I see Russell is just, as you said, his show is going to continue. I mean, he's just having a crazy season, and I mean, after Durant left last year, we can't even ignore the feelings he's been having. He's shown it multiple times in interviews that he's angry, and he's really going to fight, and he's not going to go down without one.
It's such a shame that they're announcing the MVP after the finals, and that we don't know before the series which one of these two guys who had historic seasons is going to be the MVP. Just imagine if Harden won the MVP, and we got to watch Westbrook go up against Harden in the first round. Just how angry Westbrook would be, and how much passion he played with, more so probably than he did all regular season. It's just something I think the NBA messed up on, or just got unlucky with the timing, because we had such a great MVP race, and now we won't know till after the finals. It could have potentially fueled one of these guys.
At that point too, I mean, it's supposed to be a regular season MVP. It's kind of interesting to see, like, all right, is their playoff performance going to really affect their MVP bid, or is that already in the works? The ballots are.
Well, it can't.
They're just not posting it. They're just not going to say who won it.
Right. The ballots were due today, Friday, for the people who were the journalists that were eligible to vote, and then they're not announcing it until after the finals. They're having like an NFL style NBA award show.
That should be interesting, yeah.
All right. Yeah. So let's move on. We got a couple of series left to Spurs and Grizzlies. The Spurs are the 2 seed. Once again, 61 wins. Just another year, another tremendous Greg Popovich job. Kawhi Leonard was amazing. And they're going to play the Grizzlies, who 43-39 had a great record. Grit and grind. Zach Randolph came off the bench this year. They struggle offensively at times. They're pretty good defensively. They have Marc Gasol against Pau Gasol's brother. Like the last year, just a ton of interesting storylines.
I mean, my initial thoughts are the same old from Greg Popovich. I mean, we don't see the Spurs exit the first round a lot when he's been coach, and I don't think it's going to be anything different this year. I mean, this is going to be the first year where Kawhi is really going to step up in the play. I mean, yeah, he did get a Finals MVP a couple years ago, but this is. I mean, we've seen all year he's just slowly and gradually been taking over this team. In March, he was just fantastic. It seemed like he was on the practice court hitting game-winning shots. I mean, it was completely remarkable. So I think this should be an easy one for the Spurs. But I mean, not to disrespect the Grizzlies in any way, they have a very talented team. I mean, Mike Conley, I think he's. Yeah, he might be overpaid in my opinion, but I think he's one of the more underrated point guards in the league. And then, as you said, they have Marc Gasol down low. I expect him more out of Chandler Parsons this year, but I mean, there's not much you can do. He's been hurt, but even when he hasn't been hurt, he's not even like playing up to any sort of level that his contract deems he should be playing at. But
yeah. That's been one of the more underwhelming signings of the offseason for sure.
I think it's going to be an interesting series overall. I mean, the Spurs, I think they should get out of this. I mean, it's not going to be easy per se. I mean, no NBA playoff game is easy, but I don't think they should have too much of a challenge from the Grizzlies. The Grizzlies are a talented team, but I just don't think they match up to the Spurs level.
So, the way I look at this, Kawhi's obviously the best player in the series, not even close. Who's the second best player in the series for you? I think I'm going to have to go with LaMarcus Aldridge. I don't see anyone on the Grizzlies being better than him. I mean, I think so. You think Aldridge is a better player than Marc Gasol?
I mean, Marc Gasol, don't get me wrong, is a very talented player, but just in terms of the game and in terms of this series in general, I think LaMarcus Aldridge will perform as the second best player. I think.
Okay. That makes sense. Aldridge, a few years ago when the Blazers met up with the Grizzlies just double-teamed him and shut him out. But that won't be possible, I guess, with the Spurs just because they have Kawhi and their offense isn't focused on one player like it was back in
the Spurs are another team. You could double-team all you want, but all these players are capable. We've seen that all season. It's just something about Greg Popovich. He's able to bring out the best in the players that he has. I mean, Patty Mills was a no-name as early as 5 years ago, and now he's one of the most crucial players on the team. He comes off the bench, and he's pretty much the leader on the team. From what I've seen, I've watched a couple Spurs games this year, and he's really led off the bench. His spark, his explosiveness, it really brings a lot to the team. And then, of course, you have Manu and Powell, just experienced veterans all across. You have David Lee, who was a starter no less than 2 years ago. Tony Parker, all these veterans on this team. I just don't think the Grizzlies are going to be able to keep up.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting to see. it won't shouldn't affect them in this series, but going down the road in the playoffs, how last year the Spurs extreme sort of lack of athleticism on the wings and like with the guards really showed up against OKC. It's going to be interesting to see how that shows up this year. They added Jonathan Simmons, who's an incredible athlete. They have Dwayne Dedman now, who sort of came out of nowhere. He's been incredible all season for them. He took Pau Gasol's starting job at center, so it's going to be interesting to see. And now with no Tim Duncan, with Kawhi Leonard as undisputedly the best player, just how far this team can go. I think the Tony Allen injury, he was great on Kawhi. These teams split in the regular season, and when Tony Allen played, Kawhi didn't get more than 23 points in the game. And in the game that Tony Allen missed, Kawhi scored 32 points. So if he's not 100% or if he can't play, that's going to be huge for the Grizzlies. I'm trying to slow down Kawhi Leonard. But I just think the Spurs are just a better team. They're more fluent offensively. They're great defensively. They've been there, and Memphis has Marc Gasol, that kind of coming off the bench. The grit and grinds. They were able to beat the Spurs 7 years ago in the playoffs, but I don't see it happening this year. I got Spurs.
Yeah, I have
in
the Spurs
5.
in 5 as well. They're just a more talented team. A lot of good coaching from Popovich has a lot to do with that, and I mean, it shouldn't be a walk in the park, but I think they should get through this one with relative ease.
All right, yeah. So that leaves us with one more series. Golden State against Portland. Portland was doing pretty underwhelming before sort of the last trimester of the season. They were able to trade for Yusuf Nurkic. That was great for them. He really stabilized their front court. He was a playmaker. They creeped into the playoffs, finished as the 8th seed, and they're playing Golden State. All eyes are going to be on Golden State. They added Kevin Durant in the offseason after blowing a 3-1 lead in the finals. Greatest regular season of all time last season. Steph Curry, 2-time MVP. Durant's winning MVP. Just, they're too much for Portland for me, in my opinion. Go ahead.
I mean, I personally, I was disappointed. I mean, I live in Colorado, so seeing the Nuggets get beat out of the playoffs by Portland was very upsetting. But, I mean, yeah, Portland's a talented team. I mean, led by Damian Lillard and CJ McCollum. I mean, it's a really, really nice core you got right there. And then when they traded for Nurkic from the Nuggets, I thought that was a great trade for them. I mean, yeah, they had to give up a talented player. I forget which brother it was. Yeah,
Plumlee. They gave up Miles Plumlee. Yeah, one of the 50 Plumlees that there are in the NBA.
I thought he was talented, but yeah, Nurkic has proven that he deserves a starting role. I mean, it could have gone to either of them, Nurkic or Jokic in Denver, but as you know, Jokic had an incredible season. So, I mean, the trade made sense for both of these teams.
Yeah.
And I mean, is there anything else we could really say about this series? I mean, Golden State's going to be Golden State. I don't think the Trailblazers are going to give them too much trouble now that they have Kevin Durant back. Not a lot of people expect him to be ready for the first round, and it's kind of nice to see him in there. I mean, as much as I do despise the Warriors,
he's looked great in the 2 game.
Yeah.
He's looked great since coming back from injury. He looks like he hasn't lost a step, really.
A nice under the hoop comeback. Yeah.
A reverse dunk, yeah, it was typical. I mean,
did we expect anything less, though? But yeah, I mean,
no. I think the only thing with
this is going to be something that they need to make a statement on. I mean, they've shown that they can play together, yes, but now it's time to get real serious. This is playoff basketball. Portland's not the kind of team who's just going to sit down without a fight like a lot of these teams. I mean, I know I've said that a lot today, but I mean, it's true. A lot of these teams aren't the type of teams that are going to go down with a fight. Dame Dolla's very, very hungry for some playoff success. He's been on this Portland team for a while. He's been the star. He's been the leader. I think he really wants this team to get to the next level. Just unfortunate that they're playing a team as good as the Golden State Warriors in the first round. I mean, just a star-studded lineup. I just haven't seen this before, to be honest. This is one of the maybe the closest comparison to the 2012 Miami Heat.
Yeah, I think with Golden State, obviously, they're not worried about. I don't think they're worried about the Blazers. They're probably not worried about who they play in the second round. Obviously, for them, it's title or bust for them. They added Kevin Durant. They blew it last year, and if they don't win the title, it's just going to be looked as a huge failure. They have the most wins by any team ever in a 3-year span, and if you come out of that with 1 ring, it's going to be a failure despite all the regular season success they had and going all the way to the finals last year. But with that said, Golden State has been on fire lately. Now they got Durant back. I'd like to see. I'm assuming they saved the Curry Durant pick and roll for the playoffs. They didn't show much of it, if any, in the regular season. So that's probably going to be something that's just unstoppable, and they haven't shown it yet, and they were already the best team. So this is going to be the only suit for me, Golden State in 4. I just think they're the best team in the league by far. Portland made it to playoffs, great. Now you're going to get swept by the Warriors. I have Golden State in 4
as well, but I want to ask an interesting question. I saw today that Durant said, even if the Warriors don't win the finals, that he plans on staying. What do you think about that? Personally, before you answer that, I just want to say that I think that he will stay even if they don't win the finals. But give me your opinion.
So I think they're going to win the finals, but let's say for some reason they don't. LeBron goes just beast mode like last year. Somehow the Spurs beat them, whatever. I think he just enjoys. It's Oakland. They're moving to San Francisco. It's a beautiful place to live. I think he enjoys playing with Draymond, with Klay Thompson, with Curry, with Iguodala, with Sean Livingston, playing for Coach Kerr, and he just looks happy. Every game the ball movement is amazing on that team. He doesn't feel like he has to take over whenever he wants to or whenever he has to. There's so many other guys on that team that can just have monster games. It's not a burden for him like it was in OKC, and it's his best chance to win. And your legacy in this league is just how many championships are you going to win? Can you do it in the playoffs? And he hasn't been able to in OKC, and now he feels that this team gives him the best chance. He enjoys living in the Bay Area by all accounts. So all right, go for it. It's his life. No one should tell him where to sign, where to play, and he should sign wherever he's happiest basketball wise.
Yeah, I agree with you completely. A lot of people I've talked to, they take the easy argument out, and they start talking about, he's only there for the rings anyway. It was a pure championship chasing decision, and I'm like, yeah, you could say that all you want, but are you Kevin Durant? Can you really tell me that this is what he's thinking? This is what went through his mind when he signed that contract? I think it's a lot more than that. I think it's exactly what you said. I think it's a new location. It's a chance to begin again on a great team that's already got a great coach, a great core. And yeah, like you said, it's his best chance to win, so I don't see him going anywhere, regardless of their success in the finals, which, as you said, I do have them winning as well, just because of this star-studded lineup. But then again, LeBron or Kawhi could make that otherwise,
Yeah. And let's be honest, he's a celebrity who wants to live in Oklahoma City. I've never been. I'm sure it's a beautiful city, great people. When you can live in Oakland, San Francisco, you have Silicon Valley right there, great chance to make investments. You're in the tech world. Financially, obviously, these guys make a ton of money from their endorsements, from their teams. But it's just, business-wise, it's just a smart decision for him. And all power to him to do whatever he wants. So, with that said, let's go really quickly into the awards. We'll talk a little about MVP, Most Improved, Sixth Man, Coach, Rookie of the Year. And
I think you got to give it to Russ at this point.
Who's your MVP?
He's accomplished far too much. For me, it's really between Harden and Russell. That's kind of unfair because a lot of people have LeBron and Kawhi in the race, and I do too. But you just can't ignore the seasons that these guys are having. Westbrook averaging a triple-double, Harden coming close to a triple-double. Both of these teams coming head-to-head in the playoffs is going to be exciting. But breaking the record, and I think he's the most valuable player for his team. I don't think Oklahoma City would be even close to where they are right now if it wasn't for Westbrook. I don't even think they'd be in the playoffs.
Yeah, so LeBron's always my MVP just because he's the best player, and that's how I define MVP. And the way I look at it is, if you put LeBron on the Spurs, are they a worse team? That's probably the only team that you can say just because Kawhi fits in well. But I'm sure if you put LeBron on the Spurs, they're winning as many, if not more games. I think if you put him on OKC, same thing. They're winning more than 47 games. You put him on Houston, they're probably winning that many games, if not more, just with that system. Could you imagine the numbers LeBron would put up in the D'Antoni system? He could average 35, 15, and 15 in the D'Antoni system. So that's just the way I see it. But with that said, I think Russell Westbrook's going to get it. He's, there's no wrong answer with these 4 guys, but Russell Westbrook, in my opinion, is going to end up getting it, and deservedly so. He's had an amazing season.
Ooh, this
Coach
is
of
a
the
tough
year.
one.
Go.
You could give it to a lot of people. Brad Stevens. he made a Celtics squad the first seed. No one even saw them getting past the Cavs even a little bit. A lot of people had the Cavs finishing the season maybe 5-6 games ahead of the second seed, and then Boston comes in and shows that they're here to play and they're here to stay, you know. But also in the West, you have Mike D'Antoni, same exact story. No one saw this Rockets team putting up a fight like they did throughout the season. They had a lot of young guys, a lot of unproven guys. Ended up making some trades. They got Lewis Williams and a couple other guys, and that team ended up coming together pretty nicely. So I think it could go to either of those two. What about you?
So I have some dark horses. I think Steve Kerr's done an incredible job. You know, it's not easy to add a guy like Kevin Durant into your system, even when your system is as free flowing as theirs is, where everyone, you know, there's no obviously there's stars, but everyone is sort of can hit a shot. Everyone has a green light. Everyone can shoot. Everyone passes. You know, you just find the open teammate. So I think Steve Kerr's done an incredible job. I think Billy Donovan isn't getting enough credit. The fact that they lost Kevin Durant and their wins total dropped from 55 to 47 is something remarkable to me, because that's not, you know, it's a fine team. Obviously Russell Westbrook's on a tear, but to go from 55 to 47 and you lose the second best player in the league, I think he's not getting enough credit. Obviously Brad Stevens, I think if the Heat had made the playoffs, Spoelstra would have gotten it just because of the amazing turnaround the team had. And then Jason Kidd should get maybe some votes. You know, they lose Jabari Parker. They're without Chris Middleton. There's a ton of guys you can give it to, but my winner is Popovich. They lose Tim Duncan, who's there since 1998. You know, he was their best player. He was their franchise player. They win 60 games again. He makes Dwayne Dedman out of thin air almost. Jonathan Simmons comes out of nowhere. He's finding ways to make Ginobili at this advanced age, Tony Parker at this advanced age, still reliable players. I think he's just done another incredible job, and someone like he should always win Coach of the Year because he is the best coach, and LeBron should win MVP because he's the best player. It's the same argument. I just think Popovich earned it this year because he lost Tim Duncan, and they haven't missed.
I mean, I agree with you. I mean, I had Spoelstra for a while. Don't get me wrong, but
all right, yeah.
If the Heat had made the playoffs, they were the 7th seed for a while, and then they just dropped off, so I had to take them off my ballot. And then, it just came down to those two coaches. I mean, I agree with you in that, LeBron's the best player. I give him the MVP. Popovich's the best coach. Give him the best coach. But I think what we got to look at is the Coach of the Year. I mean, this year was a lot of storylines going around. And I think just based on what was going on, what expectations we had, what was going to happen, a lot of people didn't see Brad Stevens or Mike D'Antoni making their teams perform as much as they did. And that's why I had them where I had them.
Right. This was such a loaded Coach of the Year class. I mean, we didn't even mention Scotty Brooks, who took the Wizards to the 4 seed, 49 wins. We didn't mention Dwayne Casey, 50 wins again for the Raptors, without Kyle Lowry for a while, and their defense just picked it up. So just a ton of guys who did amazing jobs, and there isn't, like the MVP, there's no wrong answer. There's so many guys you can give it to, and no one should really be upset. Sixth man of the year.
Honestly, I think both of my contestants are on the Rockets. I have Eric Gordon or Lewis Williams, but I mean, it's hard. Sixth man of the year is another hard one. I mean, like you said, like a lot of these awards, they have no wrong answers because there's all these talented guys across the league. I mean, you can give it to a lot of people, not even on just the Rockets. I mean, look at a team like, I don't know, let's say Toronto. Who's coming off the bench for Toronto?
Patrick Patterson is coming off their bench. Corey Joseph, PJ Tucker now. You know, they have a lot of guys. I think for me, I was between, I like Lou Williams, I like Derek Gordon. I think James Johnson did an amazing job sort of rehabbing his career down here in Miami. That would sort of be my homer pick, but I think if I had to vote, I'd give it to Iguodala. I just think, you know, when he had to step in for Durant, he did. He does so much defensively for them, and I think emotionally he's sort of their leader aside from Draymond. He's just such a smart player, great defender. He hits shots. He fits with that system. So if I had to vote, I think I'd give it to Iguodala. But again, Iguodala, Lou Williams, Eric Gordon, James Johnson,
when you bring up someone like
seasons.
Andre Iguodala, it makes me have second thoughts, of course. But I mean, you can't ignore the numbers that Lou Williams or Eric Gordon have been putting up. They've been putting up crazy numbers for the Rockets. I mean, a lot of the successes could be pinned right to them. It could be given right to them. They have a lot of credit for stuff that's gone off the bench. They've been putting up a lot of points. I mean, like you said, Iguodala, he had to come in for Durant. He's been great defensively for the past 3 years for the Warriors. I mean, he's the secondary playmaker rather than Curry went off the bench, you know. So, I mean, I could see the award easily going to him, but I don't know. I got to give it to Lou Will
Exactly.
or Eric Gordon. It's one of those two for me. Six man like Lou Will.
Yeah, that's perfectly fine. They've had great seasons. Yeah. So defensive player of the year for me, I think voter fatigue is going to cost Kawhi, even though he's the best
Mm-hmm.
perimeter defender in the league. So I think Draymond should get it. He defends every position on the floor. He's incredible. He gets stops at the rim, stops on the perimeter. He can switch on to anybody.
Yeah, I mean,
He's just my
I see
defensive
where
player
you're
there.
going
He's
with
been
that
great.
too, but I got to give it to a dark horse, like you said. I mean, there's a couple of dark horses, but I'm going to go with Rudy Gobert. I think he's just been phenomenal for the Jazz. He's just been just a complete stopper down low. Not much has gone past him. He's averaging about 2.5 blocks a game, a couple of steals. And, I mean, it's hard. Another award like this, there's a lot of guys that we have to ignore just because of the top tier of guys just really playing out. I could see it easily going to Draymond, too. Draymond's a fantastic player.
Yeah.
Kawhi, I understand what you're saying with voter fatigue. I mean, but I think he's one of the better defenders. That block late game on James Harden a couple of weeks ago was just it was eye popping. I just can't believe that actually happened. That was one of the most clutch defensive plays I've seen in my entire basketball experience. So I think it's a close theory race between those ones. But if I had to give it to
Yeah.
one person, I think I got to go with Gobert.
Yeah. And like the MVP, I think the MVP is a 4-man race. I think this is clearly a 3-man race between Kawhi, Gobert, and Draymond. It's just, your pick of the litter. You just pick whichever you like most. In my case, Green. In your case, it's Gobert.
Ooh, honestly,
Rookie of the year.
This is a hard one too because you really want to give it to Joel Embiid, but now that he's down with an injury, I think you got to give him to the other guy on the Sixers, Dario Saric. I mean, right out of the draft, he had a great start of the season, and then Okafor went down for a little bit, and then he had to step up a little bit and got more minutes and showed that he could play in this league, and he's someone who can make a statement and really. He's not even bad on defense too. I thought he was when I first saw him. All I saw on him was that he was a great scorer, had very good offensive IQ, and all of a sudden I see him playing this really good defense on other big men, and it was surprised me a lot. So I got to go with Saric.
Yeah, I agree. I think Sarge has been incredible. I love watching European big men play. European forwards, they have such an eye for the game. They all pass. They all pass. They have amazing talent to pass. You have the Gasol brothers, Jokic, Nurkic, Saric. Now they're all great passers. They're just a lot of fun to watch. He's been great. Malcolm Brogdon's been great. For the Bucks. Yeah, plays good defense. He's good ball handler. He hits threes. He's on a playoff team, which I think is gonna entice a lot of the voters because he's just has an impact on a playoff team. Jaylen Brown is a little bit of a dark horse, sort of picked up steam midway through the season, sort of has cooled off lately. Ben Simmons didn't play a minute. Brandon Ingram came off the bench for a while, and he hasn't been that good. Dragon Bender's been hurt. Chris Dunn's been disappointing. Marcus Chris hasn't been that good. Hield and Murray haven't been that good. So it's not really a great class. Rookie of the year, with any award you can say rookie of the year, who had the best season or who is the best rookie. And Joel Embiid for 31 games, he was the best rookie. And he was historic and just tons of fun to watch. And I would feel like I have to give it to him if I had a vote.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah. So we did coach, we did MVP. So most improved player.
Honestly, I think I got to give this one to Jokic. Not a lot out of him last year, and then all of a sudden, he really rose to stardom for that team. Right down the stretch around the trade deadline in February and March, he was completely phenomenal. It looked like he was going to lead them to the playoffs. Obviously, unfortunately, they didn't get to do that. But yeah, I mean, a lot of improvement. I saw a lot of change in his game. He was much more physical down low, a lot more demanding. His defense improved, his rim protecting improved, and he's able to get more rebounds. And I mean, yeah, you can give it to a player like. I've heard people talking about Isaiah Thomas. I mean, a lot of people might think like, I don't see him in the most improved player conversation, but when you think about it, yeah, I mean, he's gone from star last year. He's a legitimate superstar now. I mean, he's the best player on the best team in the Eastern Conference. Mind you, the Cavs are also in the Eastern Conference, and he's averaging almost 30 points per game. The dude's 5'10", 5'8", or something like that. That's ridiculous. He's improved his game to the point where he can play.
Yeah,
he's a completely different size than almost 90% of the league, and he's able to score more than almost 90% of the league. So I mean, he's in the conversation too. But Yeah, I think I got to give it to Jokic here.
Yeah, Jokic is a great pick. He's had an amazing season. He's going to be hopefully an amazing player for years to come. There are a ton of guys you can give this to. Obviously, you said Jokic, Isaiah Thomas, Kawhi, Dion Waiters in Miami.
Oh, okay.
My most improved is James Johnson. I think he lost 35 pounds before the year and during the season. His ability to be a point forward for this Heat team, carry the offense when Dragic was on the floor. He had such a huge role, played such a big impact for this team after the 11-30 start and when the 30-11 run began. He was just so important. He could hit shots, he could drive, he played amazing defense on big men like DeMarcus Cousins. He could defend on the perimeter, defend in the post. He carried the offense, and he was just great. And he's been a journeyman. He's played on a ton of different teams. He's 30, and he made himself a ton of money. He came down to Miami. He did great. And I think he should be rewarded.
I agree.
For his amazing
James
season.
Johnson. I saw a couple of. I watched a lot of Heat games. I'm personally a Heat fan myself, but I watched like specific games, like late in the games down the stretch in March where they really needed that late fourth quarter points, and he would surprise me. I mean, he would come in like with real nice moves, and I was like, who is this guy? Like, I didn't see this from him last year, so I could see where you're going with that. I mean, I think he's in the conversation too. He could probably easily go to him, but of course, different opinions, different awards.
Yeah. So we've been talking for about an hour, so I think it's almost time to wrap up. Like I said before, I'm Sebastian. That's Santino. We write for Sports Routes. Hopefully, if you get through all this, keep reading our articles, support us, and this is great.